Hello, and thank you for joining me on 8. I am Maggie. And so we are getting back to this beautiful read, Excuses Be Gone by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And why are we doing this book? We are doing this book because it is a book on how to change a lifelong self-defeating thinking habits. And if you even pick up one tool in this book, it could change your life and the lives of those around you. So since we're game changers and we're here to lift it up, we're doing this. So we are in part 3 of the book in chapter 13. And we finished chapter 12 last time. Okay, so chapter 13, the second question, where did the excuse come from? Nor deem the irrevocable past as wholly wasted, wholly vain, if rises on its wrecks at last, to something nobler we attain. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Sounds like Longfellow for sure. So when you go to your doctor with a medical problem, you're prepared to answer the questions designed to help him or her determine what's going on and what treatment plan to initiate. One important function of this inquiry is to assist your physician in understanding what brought about the illness, infection, or trauma. I'm going to use this medical model as a metaphor to explore the question, where did the excuses come from in relation to making them vanish from your life? Getting to the bottom of your excuses. When it comes to these mental crutches you rely upon for so many years, it will help you to become your own doctor. That's the observer, right? And to learn the origin and duration of your condition before you implement treatment. Just like physical problems, habituated thinking patterns that keep you from attaining the life your dreams can be, wait, let's do that again. Just like physical problems, habituated thinking patterns, so there's the parallel, that keep you from attaining the life of your dreams can be remedied by knowing how and why they occurred. And a program of prevention can be then instituted. Or we can also go to the root, take the root out, and fill it with something good. So using the same model of an intake interview that your medical doctor would conduct, here are 5 questions that will help you understand where your excuses come from. Okay, so the first question, what are your symptoms? Imagine the excuses you've employed as symptoms that have kept you from maximizing your potential for happiness, success, and health. Even if they may not be as obvious as fever, a runny nose, a sore throat, or any other physical symptom that might cause you to seek out medical attention. Describe what you're feeling when you know you've got the excuse bug, and be as specific as you can. And as you start to observe yourself, you will catch yourself complaining or putting up your own roadblocks. But anyway, common symptoms include frequent episodes of blaming and fault finding, when just about anyone or anything that you think about is held responsible for your unhappiness, so it's their fault that I'm unhappy. Shame that sneakily attacks you, so shame, lowest vibration, right? Look. Anger at yourself or others, okay? And that's an interesting one because sometimes that anger can be suppressed by alcohol, medication, or just your willingness to block it. But then it'll come bursting out, right? You will wonder, where did that come from? Okay. Which erupts, okay, so anger at yourself and others, oh my gosh, here it is. Which erupts at the tiniest irritation. Envy that breaks out when you compare yourself to others. That's really, you know what's interesting? A lot of this is the social media, what we're seeing in social media, right? And laziness, inactivity, and complaining. Ooh, there it is. There it is. Okay, so as the excuse bug takes hold, you notice that you spend a lot of time looking for occasions to be offended. Anyone else's success, happiness, and good health just serve to intensify your symptoms. Self-doubt, resentment, anxiety, worry, hopelessness, sadness, unworthiness, and more may also occur. And I want to just say this too, as we are in our processes, sometimes we are not willing to face ourselves and see this, but I just want to encourage you that God is so amazing. And the way the matrix and the quantum field works is, even if we're in denial, it's going to keep mirroring that to us. And it's going to keep creating that for us so that we have a chance to heal. So sometimes we're kind of like, no, man, I don't doubt myself. Or, oh, there's no resentment there. I'm not envious. But then all of a sudden, as we pray and we open ourselves, we ground, and we open our hearts, heart coherence, and we just continue to work, listen to what that mind is, what's those 60,000 thoughts rolling around. We start to realize, oh, I do that. Okay. And that moment of inception, when you realize it, don't be discouraged, because then we can change it. Okay, so number 2. When did your symptoms first appear? Your symptoms could very well stem from your childhood memories that still persist in adult versions. For example, the rationalization, I'm too old, may have appeared as I'm too young when you were a teenager. The adult excuse, I'm too busy, might have originated as, I can't play with my friends because I have to do my chores, study, and get to bed when you were in school. So, right, different excuses for different age groups. So perhaps you also admired family members who modeled seemingly successful excuse-making behaviors. And that could be presented to you as healthy, like overworking. Now, working is so important. It gives us purpose and dignity in our life. It allows us to give service to others. But when we are overworking ourselves, and then we begin to become more irritable, our health suffers, and we are literally using it as our medication to not be involved with our family or not to face the things we need to do, then it's a whole nother ballgame. So it just depends on how it's modeled. So these lifelong thinking habits have become so incorporated into your being that only now are you beginning to see them as symptomatic of a disease process. While there is no remedy for the conditions you were exposed to that contributed to the presence of your excuses disease today, you can now see how you were infected at an early age. And the best medicine for this situation may just be found in humor, like actress Tallulah Bankhead, particularly in the observation she was said to have made that the only thing I regret about my past is the length of it. If I had to live my life again, I'd make the same mistakes, only sooner. And then this is something too, that if we have these kind of old programs running, when things are going good, we can, operate, pretty good, positive. But when those programs haven't been cleared out and you get hit by hard things, you get hit by trauma or a loss of a loved one or a loss of a job or illness, then because those are still rambling around in there, it's a lot of times harder to hold that energy and frequency and vibration of that more positive plane. And that's actually designed so that we can actually look at what's in there, go into the dark and shine the light and heal that. But if you find yourself in these places of complaining or, having these negative feelings and actions, and you're seeing, oh my gosh, I do do that, be encouraged, because that's the point, inception, where we can shift that and make a different choice. And if you're struggling, like you've had, let's say for instance, you've had trauma or abuse or a difficult childhood or, these things in the past, now you're getting hit by this hard thing, and now you're having a hard time, being positive. So you are speaking negatively, you are complaining. Just remember, like, we don't want to be, Billy Carson had a good point. If you are spewing this at me, he's not saying, he's saying those are lower vibration. Everybody's saying this. But he also says, you're spewing this into my brain and you're spewing this into my field. I don't want it. So I want to just say that if you're in that place and you're the spewer, because if we're honest, we've all been the spewer, catch yourself and check yourself and look at what it is that we're doing, and let's make a change. That's what this is all about. This is about how to defeat lifelong self-defeating habits. Okay, so we're moving on to 3. Whom were you with? Simply knowing whom you were with when you came down with your excuse disease, unfortunately, won't change it. You'll gain a modicum of insight, but the conclusion remains the same. Your past is always going to be the way it was, and there's no way to alter it. So those people you were with when you caught so many defeating thinking habits should be pretty obvious to you by now. They include members of your immediate and extended family, especially your parents and grandparents, teachers, classmates, and friends, members of religious organizations, and even folks who appeared on the television programs you watched, in the magazines and newspapers you read, and the music you listened to. I could go on and on, listing all the ways you were exposed to mind viruses. The only purpose those viruses had was to replicate, infiltrate, spread whatever possible. And your inquisitive, open, and willing mind surely was an inviting place for them to take up residence. So when you ask whom you were with when you caught the excuses disease, you can realistically answer that it was most everyone and everything you came into regular contact with from the earliest moments of your life. So in that, I just want to add the story. In the Bible, it talks about how the place where Jesus performed the least miracles is his own city he was born, like raised in Nazareth, because of their lack of belief. So here's Jesus, a powerful Son of God, amazing healer, doing all of these miracles. But when he came into his own hometown, they didn't believe. And therefore, I think he only performed 2 miracles. So tying this back into this excuse is that the questions we're asking, where we got these from, Jesus was going to where he was raised, and they were trying to hold him in, whatever, you're a carpenter, or you're this person's son, etc. So just remember, Jesus overcame, and we can overcome too. Okay, did the people you were around have similar symptoms? Were they contagious? This is 4. Forbidden knowledge. If you were being medically treated for disease, it would be important to curtail its spread. Not only would you need to be treated accordingly, but whomever you caught it from would need to be too. Think COVID. In addition, you'd be told how to minimize endangering others, and you might even be isolated to stop the epidemic from growing. Wow, isn't that kind of an interesting thought if we did COVID protocols on like complaining and gossiping and those things? Whoa. Okay, the people with whom, in nursing, we have those protocols for any contagious disease like RSV or C. diff, or, when somebody's coming out of surgery, we want to put them, surgical patients, with patients that don't have infectious disease, etc. So you don't have to just narrow out COVID, but I'm just saying, like, wow, look, if we tried to contain that, like we tried to contain a strep throat, you isolate, and of course you care, and you treat them, but also you don't let them spread it, right? So what if we did that with our complaining? So the people with whom you had close contact throughout your lives carry the illness of excuse making. Obviously, medication or isolation aren't called for here, but you do need to make the decision to rehabilitate yourself if you are to overcome the lifelong habituated thinking habits. So while you were growing up and being exposed to the excuses disease, you were unaware of what was happening. That means the means for transferring the mind virus you caught was through the magic of memetics, which I discuss in the opening chapters of this book. Remember that mimic is the root of the word memetics, and you certainly did mimic the infected people around you. Remember that mirror neurons. Monkey see, monkey do. Your mirror neurons. You get your newborn baby. You stick your tongue at the baby, and the baby sticks his tongue back at you. Those are mirror neurons. So when kids see us, they say, like, sometimes people will try to do the wrong thing and say, well, do as I say and not as I do. But the bottom line is that observation and the mirror neurons and seeing that, they're going to do what you do and not what you say if you're not in alignment. So you were ready, willing, and gullible little package for the memes to take root, replicate, and spread in. If your environment hadn't been so fertile, you wouldn't be dealing with the effects of those excuses today. This isn't a reason to blame anyone. There were lots of opportunities, particularly as you grew into your teen years and beyond, when you had a choice in allowing the excuses to take hold or not. So this is why it's really important to know also who we're around, right? They tell us in business, and they just tell us in energy work and everything. If you want to know where you're going, look at the 5 closest people close to you. If you want to large sums of money and the God Power Blueprint, and we're here building wealth, and we're here to do service, if you're not connected to people who are on their way to expanding their abundance, expanding their wealth, being healthy, making the hard choices to, stay away from the junk stuff, if they're not trying to figure out how to make money and how not to prosper, they're not doing these things, then you're going to end up where they are. So you want to look at this. And we're looking at this excuse. We're talking about how, whoever we're around is going to affect us. And that will take hold. So we don't want to blame. We just want to change. So remember, this is all about seeing that in your earliest years, you were a magnet for the energy that was directed at you. And for those of you who have had bad things directed at you, I send you love, and I send you healing, and I ask that great wisdom be given to you so that you may have the keys to heal. And as you got older, you didn't exactly stop pulling excuses toward you and start attracting and nourishing the ways that would have allowed you to outgrow them. So we can do this. 5, were you exposed? The short answer here is yes. Of course you were exposed because you had daily contact with the carriers of mind viruses. However, the excuses be gone paradigm is designed to strengthen your natural immune system so that you can deal with any similar disease processes that may come your way now and in the future. And if you are really honest, kind of write down some of your blocks, some of your excuses. And what you will notice if you are honest is you're going to see it actually traveled generation. A lot of this is just passed down from generation to generation to generation. But we're here now to break that and take a new step in a positive direction. So accepting total responsibility. In spite of your history, the one and only place that your excuses originated is in you. Regardless of the age you were when these ideas were implanted, how contagious your early family conditioning was, how frequently you were exposed, and how potent the diseases were in your home, school, church, and the culture, the responsibility is yours. And now, so the responsibility, when we take the responsibility, no matter what has happened to us, that is where the power is too, because now you are taking responsibility and now you can do something about it. So, to live a totally excuses-free life, you must be willing to state, I adopt these behaviors, I choose all of it. I may have been a child and I may not have had the skills or natural abilities to resist early influences, but it will still be my choice. I take full responsibility for all excuse making that I've engaged in. And the reason I took you through that 5 question in the last section wasn't so you could find new explanations for your habit, but so rather you could see just how prevalent mind viruses were during the formative years of your life. Those first 7 years, we are just wide open and downloading. So it is really, really important if you are a parent or you're a teacher and you are involved with children to really look at what, at every age, but especially those formative years. Okay. So now at each stage of exposure of these mind viruses, there will always be you. You may have been vulnerable, gullible, fearful, wanting to fit in, or just going along with the program, but there was still you. You're not a chair that's being redesigned or reupholstered or a robot that is created in a laboratory or oiled to perfection by its owners. No, you're a live human being with a mind of your own. After all, other members of your family, perhaps even some of your siblings, weren't fooled like you were. And you probably saw some of your friends resist the efforts of others to enculturate them in this manner. I encourage you to accept complete responsibility for all your excuse-making tendencies. You are capable of making choices to cease self-sabotaging thinking habits now, and you were just as capable when you were a child. Yes, please don't take responsibility with any sense of shame or self-reproach, okay, because there's no power in that. Know that throughout your life, you always did what you know how to do. You're also not currently being punished or attracting these inclinations because of some past lifetime karmic debt. I elaborate the excuse-building symptoms and the contagions effect of those early memes so that you can understand them, give them a fond embrace, and bid them farewell. Farewell! Think about what St. Paul said in his letter to the Corinthians. When I was a child, I thought like a child. 1 Corinthians 13:11. Look back at those early childhood mimicking behaviors and remind yourself, I no longer need to hang on to anything I adopt as a young person, regardless of how powerful the influences may have been. So any point, you can choose any point to make a change. And if you're making a change, just tap your heart. When you're having a challenge, just tap your heart and say change. And you set that intention that when you do that, I'm coming from my heart and I'm going to change and I'm going to continue to build a support system that will help me to make the changes I need to do. Because especially if you're facing some hard stuff that you're trying to stop doing, just change. When you ask where did these excuses come from, the answer is that they came from you, an individual who was once willing to listen to that kind of thinking. But a vow that you will now intend to say goodbye and good riddance to excuses that keep you from experiencing the highest, most glorious level of happiness, success, and health. The key concept to grasp here is that once you start understanding, you can stop rationalizing and justifying. Your past isn't another reason to explain your deficiencies. Don't tell yourself the old influences are your excuse for making excuses. Take responsibility for your life and continue the use of blame and discontinue the use of blame and fault finding. Let's take a look at 4 of the 18 excuses from chapter 3 to illustrate how your excuse-making habit has been shaped. So we are going to be doing that tomorrow. So thank you so much for joining me. You know, the journey of 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, or to California, all begins with one step. All becomes with our decision. We decide, we see it, we feel it, and we move, we take action. So I'm here to encourage you that whatever you're doing, you're worth it. The world needs you, and you can do it. All right, thank you for joining me for this beautiful read of this book, Excuses Be Gone by Dr. Wayne Dyer. Knowing that you're having a wonderful morning, midday, evening, or night. And I am just sending out love and prayers for all of you lovely, amazing, beautiful, beloved, wonderfuls. All right, thank you. And thank you for supporting my channel. When you get a chance, please hit like and subscribe and leave your positive comments. And as Neville Goddard and Josiah Brent would say, imagine wisely. All right, you know what's next? Peace in, peace